Peggy Mitchell-Clark. I'm a clinical psychologist, mental health consultant, an author, radio host, and coach. And my passion is to help people to understand what holds them back, where they are, where they want to go, and what's keeping them stuck, and give them effective strategies to make the changes that they are ready to make. But did you know, not everyone is ready for change. People say they want change, but they're not ready to make changes. They want something different, but they fail to do something different. Why? Because change is hard, it's scary, and it comes at a cost. But I've got some strategies that I love to share in coaching. I have a retreat coming up in December, and I've got some strategies in my book, Do Something Different for a Change, that I would love to share with you. Come by my table and chat with me. But I'm going to read from my book, Do Something Different for a Change, an insider's guide to what your therapist knows but may not tell you. And I am excited and proud to say this is the 10th anniversary edition of my book that was originally published in 2008. Ow! Thank you. So I'm going to read from the prologue of the book, which is my personal story and testimony of how I came to write the book. One day after 13 years of marriage, my husband abruptly, but not totally out of the blue, announced he was moving out. I was sitting at the computer, typing a draft of this book. I was feeling excited about how it was developing when he walked into the room and began speaking. I looked up from the computer and saw two mismatched duffel bags, one in each of his hands. He started calmly. I'm not happy, and I don't think you're happy. Most of what he said is a blur now, but I'm sure it wasn't anything I hadn't heard him say many times before. I interrupted, resigned to where I knew this was going. His attempt to soften the blow had created a palpable tension. What are you trying to say? I asked. Just cut to the chase. He continued speaking, but most of it is also a blur. By the end of the evening, my husband was gone. Just the night before, I had come to the painful realization that my marriage had fallen apart. I felt totally disconnected from my husband, and I cried out to God with some difficult questions. What do I need to do? How can I fix this? I pleaded. The answer I heard in my heart surprised me. Do nothing. Be kind, gentle, tender-hearted, patient, and forgiving. Otherwise, there's nothing more for you to do. Whoa, I thought. Do nothing? There must be some mistake. This would be drastically different from anything I'd already been doing. Maybe I was missing the point. Perhaps the point was not so much to do nothing, rather, the point was to do something different. I tried so many things to fix my marriage that in my case, doing nothing was tantamount to doing something different. The irony was not lost on me. In the midst of writing a book called Do Something Different for a Change, I clearly knew that I myself needed to do something different. I began to study every concept and recommendation that I had included in this book, and like an expert diamond cutter, I examined my current situation through the lens of my own words. I looked at each difficulty in my life and planned how I would apply the principles in this book to the beautiful diamond that I believe my life could still become. Diamond cutters must determine the best way to cut a rough stone to produce the most beauty and profit. The stone can be left at its maximum weight, losing much of its brilliance and sparkle, or it can be cut down much smaller into a more beautiful diamond. Life's adversities provide opportunities to cut away the things that keep us from becoming the best possible person we can be. To achieve our true brilliance, we must be willing to go through this process. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not suggesting that I needed to cut my husband out of my life in order to shine. That was the last thing I wanted. but difficult circumstances can serve as the pressure that's needed to take an ordinary rock and form it into a radiant diamond. That pressure began several years into our marriage. We started out happy. In the 13 years of our marriage, we had many wonderful times and we produced 2 beautiful children. But over the course of time, like so many couples, we became distant and disconnected emotionally. Stormy O'Mardian has an interesting story in her book, The Power of Praying Together. One morning, she was sitting at her desk writing. The chapter was about the importance of praying for others. Much to her frustration, a man was working high up in a tree outside of her window. Because he was making such a racket, she found it difficult to concentrate on her writing. The disruption was making her angry and annoyed, but she had a thought. Maybe he wasn't making all of that noise up in the tree to prevent her from writing her chapter on prayer. Maybe she was writing about prayer at that very moment so she could pray for him and prevent him from falling. At that point in my life, I had also ended up in a tree, feeling broken, empty, and disconnected. Perhaps writing about doing something different at the very time my marriage was ending was precisely what I needed to keep myself from falling. Perhaps it would even provide me the insight and skills to get myself safely down from the tree altogether. So there I was, writing these words just 2 weeks after realizing I was up in a tree. I felt confident I would do something different to heal my emotional pain and emptiness and experience change that lasts. Keep reading and find out how I applied the principles in this book to my own life and how it all turned out. So what I will tell you, thank you.
That's good, yes.
Thank you very much. So when I first wrote this book in 2008, I was Peggy Mitchell Norwood. And so right now I'm Mrs. Peggy Mitchell Clark. So it turned out pretty well. I got a great my true husband. So I'd love to share more about the book. It's got the psychology of change and the science of habit formation. And if you understand how habits are formed, it's actually pretty easy to establish new habits. And I'd love to talk with you more about that. Hope to see you over at my table. Thanks again, Melody.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm Peggy Mitchell Clark. Do something different for a change.